The desert sky above Las Vegas shimmered like gold-plated glass, and inside the hills above the Strip, a mansion roared with life. Marble floors bled champagne. The pool, lit from beneath, reflected the faces of killers and kings, men who wore diamonds as casually as they did blood on their hands. Latin music pounded through the walls like a second heartbeat. Tonight wasn't just any cartel celebration. It was a coronation. Christian Salinas, El Marquez, raised a glass from the center balcony. Sharp suit, silver rings, eyes cold enough to freeze a flame. The new boss of the Sinaloa offshoot had taken over the Vegas corridor in a single brutal year. Now the city bent for him. Women reached for his hand. Soldiers kissed it. Below him, millions in dirty money danced on blackjack tables and leather couches. To the world, this was the untouchable king of sin. But no one knew the truth hiding behind the eyes of the man standing beside him. Masked, silent, and guarded, he didn't speak, didn't drink, didn't celebrate. To some, he was El Marquez's secret weapon. To others, a shadow given flesh. He moved through the party like a ghost stitched into a suit. The type of man cartel hitmen feared without knowing why. Because beneath the mask, his name wasn't on any cartel list. Not in any agency file. He had erased himself 5 years ago. His name was Diego Reyes, FBI. Half a mile away, inside a van bristling with tech, Special Agent Marcus Hale locked eyes with the live drone feed. Heat signatures lit up the estate like fireflies. 92 targets. 24 armed. High walls. Private security. A fortress built from trafficking, executions, and bribes. They've been tracking this moment for weeks. The Bureau believed tonight's gathering would reveal the cartel's real leadership. What they didn't know, what no one knew, was that the most dangerous man in the mansion was already one of theirs. Agent Hale keyed his radio. His voice, calm but electric, crackled into the helmets of a 20-man tactical team. "We go on my account. Sweep and cease. No unnecessary force unless met with resistance. Our asset has not checked in." Eyes peeled. Inside, the music stopped. Every head turned toward the balcony. El Marquez stepped forward again, but he wasn't smiling anymore. The air shifted. Even the women who lived in diamonds and death felt it in their bones. Something was wrong. He looked to his masked advisor. And Diego Reyes took one step forward. He reached into his blazer. Several hands twitched for weapons. But Diego didn't flinch. He pulled out a leather wallet. Then he opened it. An FBI badge gleamed under the golden lights, bright as a blade. Gasps cut through the room. A woman screamed. Someone dropped a glass. In a split second, every armed man in the mansion lifted their weapon toward him, but he was already moving. Outside, Hale's eyes widened as the screen lit up with gunfire. "Breach now. Go. Go." The compound exploded into chaos. Armored SUVs crashed through iron gates. Flashbangs tore daylight into midnight. Gunfire thundered. Inside, Reyes dropped behind a statue as bullets shredded the air. One grazed his shoulder. Another hit a guard in the face. Blood misted the marble. Reyes rolled, grabbed the nearest pistol from a fallen Sicario, and fired twice, clean and fast. The sound drowned in screams and boots. He knew the mansion. He had lived in it for years. Every hallway, every escape route, every panic room. But it didn't matter now. Because the mask was off, he wasn't El Marquez's ghost anymore. He was dead to the cartel and unknown to the FBI. The line between both worlds had shattered. He clutched his shoulder, blood slipping through his fingers, eyes burning not from pain, but betrayal. 5 years of lies, murders, and silence. 5 years of watching children used as pawns and friends buried without names. All for a badge that might not save him now. A bullet cracked the wall beside his head. He ran, and the house of sin began to fall. Blood soaked into Diego's sleeve as he ducked into a corridor lined with imported statues and oil paintings. The opulence blurred around him. Marble, gold, velvet. None of it mattered now. Not the masks, not the name he wore like armor. He was exposed, and the wolves were closing in. Behind him, automatic fire rattled through the ballroom. Glass shattered. Screams echoed. The cartel was firing blindly, confused and enraged. In the chaos, Reyes counted the steps to the nearest passage, 13 to the left, then through a concealed archway behind the wine vault. He had memorized the layout like scripture. Now he ran it like gospel. His breath was sharp in his chest, lungs full of smoke and betrayal. 5 years of becoming a monster just to destroy one. Now, in a moment of truth, the monster looked back. Reyes slammed the hidden panel and dropped into the servant stairs. He moved fast, feet splashing through vintage wine and blood pooling down the steps. Every heartbeat sounded like thunder in his ears. His shoulder burned. He could feel the round lodge near the bone. Deep enough to slow him. Not deep enough to stop him. Above ground, FBI agents breached rooms one by one, arresting men in suits worth more than most houses. Special Agent Hale stormed through the main hallway, barking orders, eyes scanning for their missing informant. The mission data never included Diego Reyes. They thought El Marquez was the head. They had no idea the devil they feared was already on their payroll, buried beneath layers of fake names and deeper lies. Inside the basement, Diego staggered against the wall. His mind flashed through moments he had buried too deep. The night they made him kill to prove loyalty, the girl they silenced because she saw too much, the American agent who never came home after meeting him in Juarez. He'd done unforgivable things in the name of justice. And now, justice didn't even remember his name. Footsteps. Two shadows emerged from the darkness. Cartel lieutenants. Machetes drawn. Guns low. One of them spoke through clenched teeth. He was FBI. I saw it. Body armor under the suit. Diego raised the pistol he'd stolen. His hand trembled. Not from fear, from fury. At himself. At the system. At the war that turned good men into ghosts. But before he could fire, a blow came from behind. Blunt. Crushing. The pistol clattered to the floor. The world tilted sideways. His knees hit stone. Hands grabbed him, yanked him down a secondary tunnel. The door slammed behind them. Darkness swallowed him whole. Minutes passed or hours. Diego's pulse slowed. He opened his eyes in a dim-lit cellar, the walls lined with aged barrels and rot. His wrists were zip-tied. Blood trickled down his arm. One of the lieutenants lit a cigarette, the ember glowing in the dark like an executioner's candle. "You fooled everyone, Hamano," he said. "But you didn't fool me." Diego stared back silent, measuring. The other man leaned in, his face close, scarred cheek, one blind eye. "You wore our colors. You sat at our table. You called my cousin brother. And the whole time, you were the devil's echo." The blind-eyed man raised his gun, placed it against Diego's temple. "Tell me why we shouldn't end your story here." Diego's mouth was dry. His voice cracked when it came. "Because I'm the only reason you're still alive." The room went still. The blind-eyed man froze. And the one with the cigarettes spoke softer now. "He knows." Diego's eyes narrowed. His breathing slowed. "Knows what?" The man stepped forward. And in a voice that trembled with something unexpected, regret, he whispered words that cracked the room like lightning. "I know who you are. And I've been waiting 5 years to find you." Diego's heart kicked. The air thickened. The man dropped his cigarette and stomped it out. "It's me. Luis. Luis Montoya." Reyes blinked, disoriented. Luis had vanished during the first year of Diego's infiltration. They assumed the cartel buried him in the desert. Now he stood inches from Diego, alive, burned, changed, but alive. "They said you were dead," Diego rasped. "So did they about you," Luis replied. "But here we are, deep under hell, still breathing." Silence swelled between them, and above their heads, the cartel's empire was burning. In the dark, Luis reached into his jacket and pulled out a blade. "You ready to go home, Hamano?" Diego swallowed the fire in his chest. "Not until we finish what we started." The knife slid clean through the zip tie. Diego pulled his wrists free and stared at Luis like he was seeing a ghost, because that's what Luis was. Gone without a trace. No one survived that kind of disappearance unless they became something else. Something darker. Luis looked thinner, harder, and marked by time. His eyes carried the weight of things he couldn't say. But they didn't have time to unpack ghosts. Not down here. Not now. "We've got 3 ways out," Luis whispered. "All of them bad." Diego nodded, flexing the numbness from his hands. One of the dead lieutenants still clutched a Glock. He pried it free and checked the mag. 4 rounds. Just enough to reach the edge of hell. Maybe. Above, the thunder of boots echoed against marble. The FBI swept room by room, neutralizing threats and collecting intel. But Diego wasn't listed on the mission file. To them, he was just another hostile. There'd been no contact with the Bureau in months. Too many layers of separation. Too many lies to protect the cover. Agent Hale crouched near a hostage survivor, pressing a photo into the man's bloody hands. "Did you see this man? Was he here?" The man shook his head. Hale moved on. Below the mansion, Diego followed Luis through narrow tunnels lined with wine crates and centuries-old dust. Every step echoed like a drumbeat against fate. The house was built on bones, smuggler bones, drug bones, family bones. Diego knew because he helped reinforce it. They reached a rusted service hatch leading to a drainage tunnel. Light flickered at the far end, like moonlight dancing on gasoline. But just before they moved, Luis grabbed Diego's arm. "There's something else," he said. "Something you need to see." Luis pulled a leather satchel from a false panel in the wall. Inside, bound in steel rings and stained by age, was a ledger. "What is this?" Diego asked, heart spiking. "Names, accounts, routes. Every deal for the last decade. This book is the spine of the whole empire." Diego stared at it. This was bigger than anything he'd imagined. The Bureau hadn't even asked for something like this. They'd only wanted photos, names, occasional proof. But this could erase the cartel's power in one sweep. It was worth more than gold. Worth more than his life. Luis hesitated. "I was waiting for you to come back. You were the only one who could get this out." Outside, Hale's team had breached the underground entrance. Lights flashed through tunnels. Shouting followed. "We've got movement." East Corridor. 2 suspects. Diego froze. "They think we're hostiles," he said. Luis raised his hands instinctively. "Doesn't matter. We keep going. Let them see our faces." "No," Diego snapped. "They shoot first. Questions come later. We split. I'll draw them off." Luis grabbed his shoulder. "You won't make it like that." Diego stared at him. "I already didn't make it." He handed the ledger to Luis. "You take this. Find Hale. Say the name, Langston. He'll know you're with me." Luis hesitated, but then took it, tucking the satchel under his shirt. Diego turned and bolted down a side tunnel, boots hammering stone, pain ripping through his shoulder like fire. He could hear the agents closing in, shouts, steel, clashing breath. At the tunnel fork, he skidded and kicked open a side grate. Rats scattered. Diesel fumes drifted in from the far end. The mansion backed into an industrial zone. If he could reach the scrapyard, maybe he could vanish into the noise. But he didn't make it far. A figure stood at the exit, arms folded, backlit by the red glow of a generator. Even after all these years, Diego recognized the silhouette instantly. Agent Brooks. His old handler. The man who recruited him, trained him, sent him into the fire. Except he was supposed to be dead. Brooks stepped forward, smile thin as razor wire. "You look like Hellraise." Diego aimed the Glock with both hands. "You died in Juarez. They sent your ashes to Quantico." Brooks chuckled. "Those weren't my ashes." 1,000 questions stormed Diego's brain. None came out. Why? He managed. "Because the war stopped making sense," Brooks said. "You know it too. You did everything right. And still they threw you away. Just like me." Diego's hand shook. Years of pain tightened around his throat. "Where are you now?" Brooks reached inside his jacket. No weapon. Just a black velvet pouch. "I'm what happens when you survive too long. And I'm giving you one chance, Diego. Drop the badge. Drop the lies. Come with me. We can run this. You were my handler. And you were my best asset." Diego's jaw clenched. "I trusted you. That was your first mistake." A whisper of movement behind Diego. He turned just as Brooks raised his hand, and another figure stepped into the tunnel behind him. Gun raised. No time to think. The world exploded again. The shot cracked through the tunnel like lightning in a cave. Diego dropped, rolled hard against the concrete wall, and fired back. The second man staggered, hit in the thigh, weapon skidding away. Brooks didn't move. He just stood there, calm as ever, watching Diego with something between admiration and sorrow. Diego pressed his back to the wall, breath ragged, sweat mixing with blood. His shoulder was on fire. The Glock was down to 2 rounds. "Why are you still here, Brooks? Why show yourself now?" "Because I knew you'd never stop chasing ghosts unless one walked straight toward you." Diego's mind spun. The tunnel felt tighter now, the air thinner. Brooks had disappeared 4 years ago in a supposed ambush. The Bureau had held a memorial. Diego gave a eulogy. Now the man he once trusted most stood at the center of the very nightmare they swore to destroy. "You think they'll forgive you for this?" Diego said. "Joining the enemy?" "They're not enemies anymore," Brooks replied. "They're survivors, just like us." Diego's hands trembled, not from weakness, but from clarity. The truth didn't come in one wave. It came in pieces, like broken glass. Brooks hadn't been taken. He'd chosen this, chosen power over principle. And now he wanted Diego to make the same choice. Behind Brooks, the second man groaned, trying to crawl away. Diego fired a clean shot. Silence returned. "You've changed," Brooks said. "You haven't," Diego replied. "That's the problem." For a moment, the only sound was the distant wail of sirens. Somewhere above them, Vegas carried on. Parties, lies, death dressed in sequins. Diego pushed off the wall, slowly circling toward the wider exit. Brooks didn't stop him. "There's no home left for you," Brooks warned. "The Bureau will bury you." "They buried me." "Then I'll dig my own grave," Diego said. "But I won't sell my soul to fill it." Brooks didn't answer. His silence said everything. Diego turned and vanished into the shadows. 2 blocks away, in the industrial yard behind the mansion, Luis crouched in the dark behind rusted containers. The ledger pressed against his chest like a second heartbeat. Every few seconds he checked the alley, waiting for a sign. Any sign. Footsteps. Luis raised a pipe, but it was Hale's voice that broke the silence. "Drop it." Red laser dots danced across Luis' chest. "I'm with Reyes," Luis shouted. "Langston. He said to tell you Langston." The lasers didn't drop. Hale stepped forward, eyes locked. "Where is he?" "Alive. He gave me this." Luis held out the ledger, slow, deliberate. Hale took it, flipping through the pages. Names. Offshore accounts. Shipment logs. It was everything. A decade of crime mapped in ink. "Take me to him," Hale demanded. "I can't," Luis said. "He's buying time." Hale looked toward the compound. Flames licked the rooftop. Backup was arriving. Helicopters circled. Still no sign of Reyes. Luis reached into his jacket and pulled out a USB drive. He said if he didn't make it, this goes to the public. Hale took it, fingers tightening. What else did he say? He said he's not coming back unless someone brings him. Inside the tunnels, Diego moved like smoke. The pain in his shoulder blurred the edges of his vision, but he knew these halls. He knew every blind spot, every sensor. He'd built the lies with his own hands. He reached the old gun room, once used for silent executions. Now it was empty, except for a blood trail smeared across the floor. Diego followed it. It led to a figure leaning against the wall, breathing shallow, bleeding from the stomach. Agent Brooks. "You didn't shoot to kill," Brooks coughed. Still soft. Diego said nothing. Brooks smiled through blood. "You remember what you said the first day I recruited you?" Diego's jaw tightened. "You said you didn't care about medals, just truth. And you said the truth doesn't get medals." Brooks laughed, choking on it. The laugh turned to blood. "We were both wrong," Diego whispered. "The truth doesn't get medals. It gets men like us killed." Brooks reached into his pocket slowly and slid something across the ground. A photo. Water-stained. Faded. Diego picked it up. It was Reyes with his younger brother, taken days before he was murdered by cartel smugglers. Brooks' eyes dimmed. "I never stopped watching your back, kid." "Then why'd you let me burn?" "Because I thought the fire would make you stronger." Diego stood, photo clenched in his fist. It didn't. He turned and walked away, leaving Brooks in the dark. Above ground, Hale stood at the mansion gate as a team rolled out Luis in handcuffs. But Hale said nothing. He looked up toward the broken windows and the fire-lit roofline. He had a feeling Reyes wasn't done yet. And down in the underworld, Diego Reyes climbed toward the light, ledger, ghosts, and truth dragging behind him. Rain started falling just as Diego reached the surface, soft and sudden, washing over blood-stained concrete like the world itself needed cleansing. He slipped out through a service tunnel behind the property, past the last perimeter lights, his shirt torn, skin slick with sweat and smoke. Sirens echoed behind him. Helicopters thumped the sky overhead. But in the dark edges of the city, he was just another shadow trying to disappear. He had no weapon, no badge, no backup. Only the blood on his clothes and the truth in his hands. The sky flashed white as another squad moved through the southern grounds. He ducked behind a truck chassis, breath locked in his throat. He wasn't afraid of dying. He just wasn't ready for it to mean nothing. Footsteps crunched nearby. Tactical boots. Reyes froze. Void. Sector 4 clear. No sign of target. He waited, heart steady, watching them disappear into the blur of stormlight. When it was safe, he moved again, through the scrap lot, past burnout trailers and rusted fences. His body was failing him. The bullet wound throbbed with every step. His head spun from blood loss and exhaustion. But he couldn't stop. Not yet. In the distance, Diego saw the flash of headlights near a construction trailer. A single black SUV. Windows tinted. Engine running. Standing beside it, as if pulled from the past, was a figure Diego never expected to see again. Langston, former deputy director. The one man who believed in his mission from the start. The one who vanished 2 years into the op, retired without warning. "You're late," Langston said. "I wasn't invited," Diego replied. Langston tossed him a thermal blanket and opened the rear door. "Get in." Inside, silence. No radio chatter. No surveillance noise. Just the quiet hum of betrayal and history. Langston glanced back at him. "We found the ledger." "Hell has it." "Good," Diego said. "That'll put a few graves in motion." "It'll also put a target on your back," Langston warned. "You understand that, right? They'll paint this as unsanctioned. Say you went rogue. Let them." Langston exhaled slowly. "You did good, Reyes. But we're past medals. Past apologies. What comes next? There's no coming back from it." "I'm not trying to come back," Diego said. "I'm trying to finish." Langston nodded. "We have a problem. Brooks didn't die. We lost his signal. He was airlifted out before our teams could recover the body." Diego's jaw clenched. "Then it's not finished." "No, it's not." The SUV rolled forward, leaving the wreckage behind. Through the tinted glass, Diego saw fire trucks pulling up. News vans. Everything about to be spun, washed, buried. And then something clicked. "Luis." Diego sat forward. "Where is the guy I sent out with the ledger?" Langston looked over. "Protective custody." Hale's watching him. Diego stared out the window. Hale wouldn't let anything happen. But that didn't mean the Bureau wouldn't. "They'll bury him too," Diego said. "He knows too much." "Only if we let them," Langston replied. At a secure site 20 miles outside the strip, Luis sat in an interrogation room under soft white light, eyes bloodshot, face pale. He hadn't said a word since being brought in. Agent Hale stepped in, carrying a single folder. "The ledger's already being scanned. You did something brave, Luis. I didn't do it for you." "Fair enough." Luis looked up, his voice sharp now. "But if Reyes doesn't walk out of this alive, I burn it all down." Hale didn't blink. He respected that kind of loyalty. Outside, Diego stepped into the hallway. Hale met him halfway. "Took your time," Hale said. "I had to survive first." They stood in silence for a beat. "You left a crater back there." "Had to," Diego replied. "That's the only way they'd notice." Hale opened the door to the room. Luis stood up. They locked eyes. For a moment, nothing moved. Then Diego smiled faintly. "Told you I'd finish it." Luis walked over, pulled something from his coat. "The USB. Still yours, Hermano." Diego took it, closed his hand around it, and nodded. But as he looked toward the door, another shadow stepped in. A young man in bureau blue. Orders just came down, sir. Reyes is to be held for full internal review. He's not cleared to leave the building. Hale stepped forward. He's not a threat. The man didn't flinch. Policy says otherwise. Diego raised a hand. It's fine. Hale looked at him. No, it's not. Diego turned to Luis. You keep your head down. This thing's not over. He walked down the hallway alone. No badge. No applause. Just a man trying to carry the weight of 5 years in hell. Behind him, Hale whispered to Luis. He's not going down for this. Not while I'm breathing. And somewhere out there, in the dark corners of the Bureau and the Cartel alike, Agent Brooks was still alive. Waiting. The night sky over Las Vegas throbbed with helicopters. Spotlights flared across the desert basin as sirens echoed through the canyon walls. Inside the penthouse bunker buried beneath a mountain estate just miles from the Strip, Reyes sat chained to a chair, face bloodied, heart racing. Across from him, Delgado stood with a trembling pistol, hands slick with sweat, eyes red from betrayal. You were my brother, Reyes choked out, his voice hoarse from the beatings. You saved my life in Sinaloa. You told me we'd never lie to each other. Delgado's hand shook harder. His finger hovered over the trigger, caught between vengeance and confusion. Everything Reyes had revealed just moments ago shattered decades of loyalty. The mansion wasn't just a cartel stronghold. It was a fortress built on secrets. And Reyes, the man Delgado believed to be his ruthless cartel boss, had just flashed an FBI badge, pinned beneath his torn, blood-stained shirt. You played all of us, Delgado hissed. You let my cousin die. You let my father rot in prison. Reyes stared into his eyes. I didn't let that happen. I tried to stop it. They moved faster than I could. I buried so many lies to protect this mission, and I paid for every single one. Suddenly, heavy boots pounded down the hallway. Panic sparked in Delgado's gaze as a dozen armed cartel soldiers stormed in, guns raised. Their leader, a heavily scarred man named Mateo, paused at the door. Boss, we've got company. The rest of the FBI team breached the outer wall. Mateo's eyes locked on Reyes, then shifted to Delgado. No one moved. You kill him now, Mateo said, voice like gravel. Or we all burn. Delgado's finger pressed tighter on the trigger. Then the walls exploded. A concussive blast rocked the entire underground chamber as flashbangs erupted in searing white light. Gunfire crackled like fireworks on the 4th of July. Chaos erupted. Men screamed. Shadows sprinted through smoke. Reyes ripped the chair backward, slamming it into Delgado's legs. Delgado fired, missing by inches. Reyes lunged upward, headbutting him and knocking the pistol from his grip. He dove for the gun, rolling behind a concrete pillar as FBI agents poured into the room. FBI, drop your weapons. Mateo swung his rifle toward the agents. A single shot dropped him instantly. Blood sprayed the polished marble floor. Delgado tried to run, but Reyes tackled him to the ground, wresting control of the pistol and pressing it against Delgado's temple. It didn't have to be this way, Reyes whispered, his voice cracked with pain. Delgado's eyes welled. I would have followed you to hell. You did, Reyes said, then pulled the gun away and handed it to Agent Knox, who had just emerged from the smoke, bruised and bloodied, but alive. Reyes stood, swaying slightly, his ribs likely fractured. His eyes swept over the aftermath, bodies on the floor, agents shouting orders, medics dragging survivors out through the smoke. Is it over? Knox asked, voice low. Not yet, Reyes replied, because this was just the first wave. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a battered phone, the one no one had known he still carried. With trembling fingers, he played back the last voicemail from Anna. If you're hearing this, I've been compromised. The Russians are buying out what's left of the Vegas syndicate. They think the feds are too busy with the cartels. They're wrong. You have 3 days before the city goes dark. Knox's jaw tensed. Another operation? Reyes nodded grimly. And this time, it's not just drugs. It's weapons, biochemicals, foreign buyers. We're not done here, not even close. As medics loaded wounded agents onto stretchers and sirens screamed outside the estate, Reyes stepped into the dawn light, bruised, broken, but alive. Only Delgado remained, on his knees in handcuffs, staring up at the sun as if seeing it for the first time. The betrayal still tore at him, But deeper still was the truth, that he believed in a lie that was never his to begin with. In the distance, the strip still blinked with neon. Tourists laughed. Bellagio fountains danced. But deep beneath the city, something darker stirred. And Reyes knew the final curtain hadn't fallen yet. 3 weeks later, Las Vegas glittered like nothing had ever happened. The lights still danced. The music still thundered. Tourists lined up outside casinos, chasing dreams. But under the surface, something had shifted, quietly, permanently. The city had lost one of its kings, and the silence left behind was louder than any gunfire. Diego Reyes sat alone in a safe house near the edge of the desert. Walls bare. Phone silent. Badge resting in his palm, cracked and blood-stained. It didn't shine the way it used to. Maybe it never had. Outside the window, the sun dipped behind the red rocks, throwing long shadows across the land that had swallowed his past. He hadn't slept more than a few hours since the raid. Too many faces haunted him. Brooks, Delgado, Mateo. Even Anna's voice still echoed in his ears. The mission had been a success, technically. The cartel collapsed. The ledger led to global arrests. But success was never supposed to feel like this, hollow, bruised, and forgotten. The Bureau had cleared him. Quietly. No press conference. No medal. Just a paper signed and filed, and a polite suggestion to take a long leave of absence. The kind of leave that never really ends. He stood, badge still in his hand, and walked to the kitchen table. There, folded neatly, was the letter Luis had left behind before disappearing again. No return address. Just 3 lines. We all wore mask humano. Yours just happened to crack first. Keep walking. Don't look back. A knock broke the silence. Reyes moved slow, quiet. He opened the door just enough to see Hale standing there. Tie undone, sleeves rolled, face tired. They tried to bury it, Hale said. Everything. The ops, the bodies, even the ledger. Reyes stepped aside. Hale entered, looking around like he'd stepped into a memory. How deep? Reyes asked. Too deep, Hale replied. And it's not just the cartel anymore. That message from Anna? She was right. The Russians are here. Different playbook. More patient. More lethal. Reyes leaned against the counter, the weight in his chest rising again. Then why are you here? Because they need someone who already died once. Someone who knows how to disappear. Reyes looked at him. Really looked. Hell wasn't just pitching a mission. He was offering a choice. A road with no signposts. No guarantees. Just a shot at meaning. I said I was done, Reyes said. You said that before, Hale replied. Silence filled the room again. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was full of everything they'd lost. Everything they still had to lose. Finally, Reyes set the badge down. I'm not going back in as a ghost. If I do this, I stay Diego Reyes. No mask. No lies. Hale nodded. Deal. Where? Boston. They've got something buried in City Hall. Money trails. Off-books weapon contracts. And a name that popped up in your ledger twice. Reyes stared at the badge, then reached for it. One last war. He slid it into his pocket. No, Hale said. The last war already happened. This one's personal. They walked out into the night. Stars above, sand beneath, and a future full of fire waiting just past the horizon. As they drove, Hale reached for the console, pulled out a folder. Almost forgot. One last thing. He handed Reyes a photograph. It was old. Grainy. A young man in cartel colors, standing beside Agent Brooks. We ran facial recognition, Hale said. We were wrong about who recruited Brooks. He didn't flip on his own. Someone else turned him. Someone higher. Reyes stared at the photo, then flipped it over. No name. Just a date. 10 years earlier than Brooks ever entered the Bureau. You think he's still out there? Reyes asked. Hale kept his eyes on the road. I think this whole thing was never just about one cartel. I think someone's building something bigger. Reyes leaned back. The hum of the engine filled the silence. The past was behind him, but the story wasn't over. Not by a long shot. As the desert disappeared behind him, so did the last pieces of the man Diego used to be. He wasn't looking for redemption anymore. He was chasing truth, even if it cost him everything. And to those still watching, if stories like this hit your soul, show love. Like the video, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe because some truths are still buried and we're just getting started.